everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nerds After Dark podcast. I'm Cole Swanson. With me, as always, are my three brothers, two in blood, one in law, Ben Swanson, Trent Swanson, Josh Sterling. Good evening. As always, we are Nerds After Dark. We have normal lives during the day, but when the kids go to bed, we can nerd out over Lord of the Rings, which is what we're talking about today. Yes, normal, mostly. Which is what we're talking about today. If you saw the title, you know that we are reacting to the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, episode 4, which is called The Great Wave. We've got a lot to say. We'll get into it soon. But to start this week, I actually wanted to do it a little bit differently since, we're private people. You don't have too much information about us. I at least wanted you to know a little bit about how we got interested in Lord of the Rings and the background of why we love Tolkien and that whole universe. So we're just going to do one person this week. Decided it was going to be Trent. I did actually give him a heads up. So, Trent, where did it start for you? I have an idea of where it may have because I was probably around. Why you love Lord of the Rings, what do you like about it, and what brings you to this point in your life? Big questions.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm sure you've seen me in maybe the first podcast, but I am Trent, Cole's youngest brother. Ben's the oldest, obviously. So how I fell in love with Lord of the Rings, initially, I just remember our dad always made us have to read the books before we could watch the movies. So I remember Cole and Ben got to watch the movies, and they were watching it with my dad. And so when they were watching them, I would try to come and sneak down during the middle of the episode, during the middle of the movies, and go in the kitchen and try to get a little sneak peek. And I remember my biggest memory is walking in the middle of Return of the King. When is it Eowyn? Is Eowyn the one from Rohan, or is that Arwen?
Eowyn is from Rohan.
It's Eowyn, yeah. So Eowyn, she's with Mary, right? Or is it Pippin?
It's Mary.
It's
Right?
Mary.
Oh no, it's
Mary.
It's Mary. Yeah. So she's with Mary on the horse, and they're in the battle at probably should have looked up the names.
Eleanor Fields.
We're such experts.
The background story is
here to hear what we have to say.
The background story demonstrates that we're not experts.
Yeah, so they were at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and Eowyn's just going, and she's cutting off the elephant's legs left and right with her swords. I just remember that being an epic scene. I'm hiding in the kitchen. My dad doesn't know I'm down there, otherwise he'd be very upset, and I just see the scene, and I remember going to the bathroom and then leaving. So that was...
Did you go to the bathroom right there as you were watching, or did you actually...
No, after the scene, I went to the bathroom.
Good. You pooped in your pants.
Eowyn's amazing swordsmanship made you lose control of your bowels.
No, I just went to hide to make sure Dad didn't see me after the scene, and then I went back upstairs. So I remember that being my favorite memory, and then after that, I read the books. Actually, a little tidbit, I never finished the books. I told my dad, I was halfway through The Return of the King, and I told my dad if I could watch the movies, I promise I will eventually finish the last book, and I actually never finished. So I gotta finish that.
Yeah, we got to get you on that before we get to the end of this series.
So. Does your dad know these things?
Yeah, I think I've told him I never read it.
Good. So that's how Trent fell in love with the universe. It started with the movies. Happens with a lot of people of our age, so that's great. We'll get into the others next time, or another person next time. But thank you, Trent. And while you're talking, how about a quick 1 to 10 ranking of this episode and a sentence of why?
I would give this episode kind of similar to me. They've all been kind of similar, probably around 7. I enjoy the storylines with like the Southlands. We didn't really go into the Harfoots at all in this episode, did we? I don't really remember.
I don't think we saw them at all this time. Yeah.
We got to see a little bit of Numenor some more, so I enjoy being able to see all these aspects, and I thoroughly throughout it keeps most of my attention, so I'd give it about a 7 out of 10. Okay. Some action here, some lore going on, so yeah.
Okay. Josh, ranking 1 to 10, one sentence.
9.5. The end of it sealed it for me. It was very moving. the way that the Queen, Regent, and Galadriel came together. I know that's kind of uh, jumping ahead, but anyways, it was great. I felt like there's a lot of character development, and it honestly, I think it's my favorite one. I said that last time, but I think this one beat the last one for me.
All right, 9.5. I like that. Ben, what about you?
7.351. I don't really
Okay.
have any good reason for that. It just felt like it was fine. And 7 is a fine number. I'm enjoying it. Julianne, my wife, has had no interest in fantasy anything, but she's getting into it too. So it seems to have some mass appeal. You know, for a little bit of a purist, I have my qualms, but it's drawing in new fans. So great.
Okay, good. I'm up there with Josh, 9 to 9.5. This was actually my favorite episode by far. Not by far, but this was my favorite episode. And I have a maybe specific reason why it wasn't a 10, but love the action sequences. And yeah, I thought it was really good. All right. So moving into our first section, Ben, why don't you tell us about the Numenor timeline, or at least what's happening in Numenor at the moment? And we'll react to that.
Feels like a good amount happened. So Muriel has the vision of the island falling into the sea, and she's trying to prevent that from happening. And she thinks stopping Galadriel is her way to keep that from happening because she associated her with the island sinking in a vision. Galadriel gets put in prison because she gets real uppity, and then she breaks out because they try to send her back to Middle Earth, and then she finds Muriel's father incapacitated up in the tower, and we find out that he was an elf friend, so they deposed him. And then she convinces Muriel to side with her and take the army to over the sea to Middle Earth to fight Sauron. I think that's most of it. Isildur joins on to fight after he gets dismissed from the navy, as it were, and his sister, whose name I've already forgotten, is joining some guild to do some kind of craft. I haven't really been roped into her storyline very much to this point. I think that's most of it.
Okay.
What did y'all think about Numenor?
I don't know if y'all addressed this last week, but just with Numenor and the story that's going on with Isildur, I'm kind of confused at how old Isildur is going to be when he destroys Sauron. Obviously, did y'all talk about that last week or address it?
Not last week. We did the first week, but I think that's a whole. I don't see how it's possible that it makes sense unless we're at just the very end of the Second Age, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense either because Gondor has to be established in Middle Earth, which I guess it could be done in Isildur's lifetime. But yeah, it's not making that. That's a bit of a hole.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps talking about going out to the west, which I think is interesting that they're adding that the Valar are going to destroy Numenor, because then I guess the remnants go and create Gondor. So I guess yes, they're kind of creating the timeline of him going and starting Gondor.
Right.
So why is it a hole for someone who isn't as informed?
It because Isildur ends up being the king of Gondor, and in like the great battle fights Sauron and ends up killing him, or we think kill him, and taking the ring, and then him and Elrond go to Mount Doom, and he elects not to destroy it. It's a whole thing. But like, in the Peter Jackson movies, he's maybe a middle-aged guy at that point. So that effectively means that this would all have to happen in the next like 30 years, which is a pretty short time frame, I think, for when this was set. But
well, I don't think he'd have to be 30. I mean, Aragorn lived to 200, and Aragorn was a descendant of Isildur. He still has like kind of that elven, long-living blood. So I mean, he could have been in what we saw in Peter Jackson's. I mean, he could have been a couple hundred years at least.
That's true.
So I mean, he could definitely live for a few hundred years. I mean, but I was thinking that this is maybe a couple thousand years before the Third Age.
I forget that they still have the long life. But yeah, I guess I can't remember how descended Aragorn was from Isildur, but I guess it was pretty far down the line, right?
The short answer is they didn't mess with the timeline too much. Isildur is alive at the time that they go to Middle Earth to fight Sauron, and he's still alive when Sauron is defeated at the end of the Second Age. And Isildur lives several hundred, like 400 years. 450, something like that. So
guess
it does make sense.
I did not place how old he might have been.
So maybe the
No,
original
sorry,
film.
250 years.
Oh,
Forgive me.
Maybe
I mean,
the
we're
original
But
close
yeah,
to
a lot
films.
happens over that time.
Yeah.
Maybe the original films had him too young.
It's possible.
They probably had him looking a little bit oddly young, yeah, because I don't know exactly how long the Numenorians lived, but it wasn't much longer than 250 years. So,
Another thing with that timeline, that was probably the one issue I had, was that Galadriel and Muriel reconciled pretty quickly, which I guess they did it over the bedside of her ailing father, and so maybe there was some automatic, I don't know, empathy there. But after being like very at odds with each other and like her effectively exiling her, they're like, yeah, let's suggest like possibly teaming up, and then not, and then of course they end up teaming up by the end. But that was kind of the only little like thing for me.
I will say this about the timeline. They do have to compress the Elven timeline to be within one lifespan of even a Numenorian. So, for instance, the Second Age is something like 3,400 years. Yeah, so 3441 ends the Second Age. Celebrimbor, building this forge and forging, spoiler, some stuff, happens in Second Age 1500. Isildur isn't born until Second Age 3209. So we're 1,500 years apart from what's happening in the Elven timeline and what's happening in Numenor, but they have put it as if it's one time period. But I don't think it takes away too much, honestly. And they have to do it if they're not going to show, 20 generations of men.
Right. I think it's the only way to do it. I guess maybe it really isn't a hole then. I thought Isildur came early or came much later, but I guess they're just putting us in those last 30 to 40 years of the Second Age. If he was born in 3209.
They've just pushed the elvish stuff back. Like we are in like the 3200 year, but they've just waited to do all
right
of
so we can see it.
Apparently, the whole history of Gondor, from them going from Numenor over to Middle Earth and establishing the whole kingdom, and then besieging Sauron and defeating Sauron by cutting off the ring, is only like 110 years.
Okay. So it makes sense. Well, good. Look, we just figured it out on the fly that they're actually doing a good job.
Yeah. I'm fine with it.
So,
Okay.
Cole, to your point, I actually didn't think that was a problem because it seemed like the queen didn't really believe in how she was being forced by the people to act. And so when Galadriel was able to talk to her and really draw out what was inside of her, then she recognized the importance of it.
That's a good point. Go ahead.
And she used the petals at the end falling off the tree as a way to sway her people. But yeah, I think Josh is right. I think she was always kind of maybe on the mindset of Galadriel and being an elf friend and being more involved in Middle Earth. And so the petals, I guess, gave her a reason to use religion in a way to sway her people in that direction.
I see. So it was like it was very political. She was doing what the masses wanted because they deposed her father for being like very pro-elf. But she had a secret that she knew was the reason why he was very pro-elf, and that was this Palantir in this promise of destruction for the Isle of Numenor.
Right, and you get the idea that the people are very, like, they're having to really make sure they keep their favor with the whole kind of uprising that's starting a little bit, and then the king goes down there and gives this big speech, and then gives them all drinks and everything, so...
Right. Yeah. What did Ben? What did you think of that speech? Did you find it rousing or did you find it cheesy?
Thought it was a little cheesy.
Okay, I thought it was pretty good. I thought the actor did a good job, and I don't know, thought it was well worded. Thought it worked out pretty well. I liked it. But I'm not surprised you thought it was cheesy.
You ready to go to war? Maybe I'm just a cynic. I think maybe the viewers are getting that idea that I'm a little bit of a cynic.
I don't think maybe.
A little hard to please.
I don't think maybe is any portion.
Well, Ben might be a cynic, but Cole is just pleased by anything.
I like it. I'm having a good time.
I've been spoiled by Theoden's death speech. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that.
I mean, to be fair, to be fair to what you were thinking earlier, Cole. I mean, the queen herself does say she doesn't believe in the vision of the Palantir, basically, and so I mean, she does kind of change her mind kind of quick. I do, in a way, because she even told Galadriel herself, like, I don't believe the same that my dad believed about like treating the elves well and not being destroyed by the gods and all.
But is that really what she believes? Or is that just what she's forced herself to believe?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see maybe force herself.
At least, people talk about, like, you hear all these crazy things about bad writing and stuff. At least we understand it enough to be able to discuss it, as opposed to being like, what in the world happened there? Like, why did they just reconcile? We can have a discussion about it, which means that I think that was well done. What else with Numenor, Ben?
I don't have a whole lot more. I mean, I'm glad that things are finally moving forward. I was afraid we were gonna just languish in Numenor for a little while, and there'd be these little political spats and weird little romance things brewing slowly. But I'm glad that we're getting on with it. We're gonna see some armies go to Middle Earth, confronting Sauron. That's what I want.
I am ready for more action, though we got some good stuff in this episode. I think I'm just always, in all these types of shows, I'm always wanting more action, so it's not necessarily a negative thing, but I'm just like, give me some action. I do kind of wish they would, to make the show just slightly more gritty. I remember Trent mentioning this in the first episode. Maybe have the lighting a little more dark at times. They definitely do it in the orc camp, but even like certain aspects like the dungeon and stuff could be more gritty circumstances that I think they could adjust the lighting for a little bit.
Yeah,
Still very
I don't know.
pleased with the orc cam. That's been my favorite part.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, that's Numenor in a nutshell. We didn't hit everything. There's a lot there, but the bottom line is they are heading to Middle Earth with an army to fight in the Southlands. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about what is transpiring in the Southlands right now. Be right back.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We're going to jump right into the next section, which is the dwarves and Moria. So this is pretty short. So basically, Elrod, did I say that right?
Elrond. With an N.
Elrond.
Can I do it again? Elrod.
All right.
I knew it didn't come out.
We'll cut there and let Josh redo his, but no more redos. It's just gonna have to stay.
It means the rod in Spanish. Rod. All right, move forward.
I don't care. Elrond goes and checks in on Durin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got my two characters. And he
Durin.
yes, he suspects that he's hiding something. Come to find out, he's right, and there's a secret mine, the old mine, that he goes and explores, finds Durin there, and they discover a new ore that could bring about wealth and prosperity and power to the dwarves, and Durin's very excited about it, although his father is very cautious against it because it's very dangerous to mine it, which we see that play out in that 4 dwarves are trapped in one of the mines collapses. They do come out alive, thankfully, due to some very powerful singing from his wife.
I want to say this was my favorite timeline of the episode. It might not have been. Arndur's might have been. But this was really good, and here's why. You get some really good full circle media here, right? So there's the mithril. So Josh didn't mention the mithril, but that is the new ore that they discovered. It's called mithril. And
Frodo's mithril.
Right. Okay, thank you for preempting, but just listen. Durin discovered it, obviously shares it with Elrond, and maybe it's what makes Moria so prosperous over time, whatever. And then, of course, Frodo is gifted a mithril chain shirt from Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit timeline. I don't know if it was made specifically for him, if it was adapted from a dwarven male.
You
But-
mean Bilbo gives?
I'm sorry. Yes,
gives it to Bilbo.
Thorin gives it to Bilbo at the end of the Hobbit during the Hobbit timeline, and then of course Bilbo gives it to Frodo, and then Frodo wears it, is stabbed by a troll, survives because of the mithril shield, not only in the mines of Moria, but that was in Durin's tomb. So what a great arc that Durin is currently discovering mithril, and then it saves Frodo, the one who destroys the ring, in Durin's tomb. Awesome. So I love that. So that was one of the reasons that was one of my favorite. But also the dwarves are just like fantastically done. Like their makeup and their hair and their thick Irish accents. Like I love everything about it. It's great. And Disa, I think, is what his wife's name is. Yeah, great voice, and she's funny. I really like the dwarves at the moment.
I was always confused in the first movie, Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo is stabbed by the troll. I mean, it looks like it impales him. Like there's nowhere for that spear to go, but then he's fine from the mithril. I'm kind of confused as how it is impaled into him, and then nothing happens. You know what I mean?
Right. You would think the blunt force would be enough to kill him, but it's
Well,
mithril.
not even the blunt force though. I mean, it looks like it literally goes inside him. Like, where does the blade go?
Well, it's supposed to look like that. But also, I think maybe not. Does it play a role in the... So he's obviously stabbed multiple times, notably. The troll, and then the ring wraith, and then Shelob. Does the male protect him at all in either of those, or does it kind of bypass it?
I think he had the mail. He got the mail after he was stabbed by the ring wraith.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
so. I think he got it at Rivendell.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
He
I think.
did. He did, yes. But Shelob, no, didn't help him there.
I guess not.
Because he did get paralyzed.
All right.
So-
Well, y'all went off on that tangent. I've done a little bit of a recap on the second age. For the viewers, Cole is the one that sets up this whole outline of what we're supposed to follow, and I'm about to blow it up. He's going to be so mad. But I'm getting more and more excited about the Numenor timeline because there's stuff that I had forgotten that's so good later on, and y'all have no idea because you haven't read the Silmarillion. Oh, it's going to be great. But just a little bit of background on why all this elf hate. So Numenor was founded at the beginning of the Second Age. There was friendship between the elves and the men of Numenor. At some point, essentially, there's a king that comes on and says he's hostile towards the Valar, the gods. He's like, I don't want anything to do with them. Don't want anything to do with the elves. He kind of cuts them off, and then that's how the culture goes for a while. Elves are bad, and then Tar Palantir, Muriel's father, he kind of repents of that and decides that they should make good with the gods and the elves again. And the people don't like that. They kind of revolt. And so that's why he gets sequestered to the tower in the show. And Muriel, even though she has her father's good heart, is kind of hesitant to embrace his policies because she doesn't want the island to descend into chaos. So understanding that is important for understanding what happens later. And keep in mind, even through this time when Numenor is kind of anti-Valar, there are some who are called the Eldolindi, I don't know. But they're considered the faithful, like the small kind of religious sect that still respects the gods, but they're kind of hiding out. They're sort of a remnant in Numenor, and I think Elendil is part of that. And that's why he is sort of still an elf friend. And it may be secretly that he's part of that. I'm not sure, but that sets the stage for a lot that's going to happen later. So just keep all that in mind. Sorry I didn't bring that up earlier.
Yes. Thank you. Good information. But I have to point out that if he was prepared, it would have popped up in the last segment. But that's okay.
wasn't
We still
prepared.
got it. We still got it.
No,
Josh.
it's very interesting. So I have a question going back to the dwarves. When Elrond finds Durin in the mine, the old mine, Durin makes him swear an oath before he lets him know what his secret is. Ben, do you think Elrond will keep his oath and not tell anyone?
I have a suspicion that he will technically keep the oath, but he will find some way around it. Elves
Gonna-
kind of have that deal where they can find a way to twist
Gonna-
language and words.
Gonna go all Aes Sedai on him.
I think he may.
What? I don't get that reference.
I know.
We
you
know.
don't. We're gonna leave it there though. We're gonna just let it simmer.
What else with the dwarves, Josh?
I mean, that's really all there was. It was just the discovery of the new ore, and at the end, Durin asks his father for forgiveness because he was kind of pushing ahead without his father's blessing, and then they kind of make things right between each other, and then he sends them to go and see what's going on. Where is it that they're building the tower, the forge? Wherever it
In
is.
in Eregion,
In Eregion,
and
but
the northwestern part of.
I think where his Durin's father actually allows him to go with Elrond is Linden, which isn't that the elven place like where we saw the council and all that in the first episode?
Galahad, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's where they're going.
Yeah.
Josh, do you think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think Durin the second, or whichever it was, the father, Durin Senior, is on to something with his misgivings about digging for Mithril?
I mean, it seems like it. 4 dwarves almost died, but I don't think that's going to stop them.
So does
But
this
what
result?
could possibly happen?
Does this result in the
He's testing you,
Balrog?
Josh.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, yes, we know it results in the Balrog.
Right, because they dug too
yeah.
deep.
Too greedily and too deep. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is the word. The verbiage. That's the verbiage. Who says that? Gandalf?
I think so.
Nice.
But it wouldn't be
No,
under
it's
his
not
father's.
Gandalf. It's someone evil. But anyway, continue.
It wouldn't be under his father's reign that they did that. It would be under when
Saruman.
Durin.
Oh, Saruman, who said it?
I think it is under Durin's reign.
Because okay.
Yeah, under Durin's reign, the fall of Moria, that happened.
Interesting. That would be interesting if we get to see that. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure in some of the promos we see a Balrog, don't we? Am I making that up completely?
I think you are. Yeah.
I think you pulled that one out of your butt.
I think you're talking about the monster they saw under the. I think you're talking about the snow troll.
Maybe. I would love to see a Balrog though. Okay, well, good. There's much more with the doors, but we'll leave it there. Instead of a break, Trent, why don't you tell us about what happened in the Southlands?
Okay, so we go back to Arondir. He's still in chains in the orc camp, and we finally get to see Adar. Adar appears to be an elf. The orcs call him father. They seem to worship him in a way. And so Adar tells Arondir that he's been told lies his whole life, and basically he finally sets him free in order to send a message to the humans in the Watchtower. And then we go back to the humans. The humans are running out of food. They don't really know what to do. So Theo runs off with his friend back to the village to get food. However, it becomes nighttime. The friend runs back to the Watchtower, but Theo gets stuck and gets surrounded by orcs. He brings out the blade and attacks the orcs. And however, the orcs are very interested in the blade. They say that he has the hilt, and so they want it for themselves. And Theo ends up escaping. Arondir saves him because he's set free, and for some reason is given a bow and a sword, and kills a lot of the orcs. And they get back to the Watchtower. And basically, the message he brings to Bronwyn is that Adar said that they must swear fealty to the orcs or to Sauron, or they will be attacked.
That's a good point. Where did he get the bow and sword from?
Yeah, why would they give him a bow and sword? I mean, maybe to gain trust to the humans, but I mean, it didn't seem like to me like Adar would be thought to be on their side, you know?
Well, he wants him to make it there so he can give him the message.
True. Maybe he recovered it, like he knew where to get that from, but it was an elven sword that he had. It wasn't just like some random sword that he found.
Yeah, I think it was the sword and bow. I mean, they gave it to him and he's able to kill a bunch of orcs, so they didn't get a hilt. So, I mean...
yeah, it's backfired on them.
Like, I mean, it's because it's not like he was sending him back as a spy, because, like, Arondir actually told him what, like, was said and stuff. But, you know, maybe there might be a twist where he convinced Arondir to be on their side, and maybe he is.
Possible.
So, Ben, question for you. Who do you think Adar... Is it Adar or Adar? It's Adar, right? Who do you think Adar is? Do you think it's Sauron? Or do you think it's just some elf that's been brought up?
I don't think it's Sauron. I think it is some kind of elven servant of Sauron, and probably of Melkor before him. And it's likely a character that's just been created for the show. I don't think there's anything quite like him in the books. Um, one of my friends had postulated that maybe he is one of the original elves that was twisted to kind of initiate the race of orcs. Um, and I guess that's possible. Essentially what happened is when the children of Iluvata, the elves, awoke by the sea in the northeast of Middle Earth. Melkor was aware of them before the rest of the Valar, and he sent kind of shadows and creatures and spirits to sort of frighten them, to make them afraid of the Valar, so that they wouldn't go with them when the time came. And so uh, when when the Valar came to get the elves, some refused to go and they stayed behind and didn't go to the land of the Valar, and because they were afraid because of Melkor's deception. So some of them remained behind, and a few of my guests were taken by Melkor as the idea and twisted and tortured until they became the race of orcs. So maybe this guy who is called Father by the orcs is essentially one of their ancestors, and therefore one of their high leaders and captains of Sauron and Melkor. So that's a possibility. Maybe that's reading too much into it. But
That's an
interesting theory.
interesting theory as to why they might call him father, because you're right. I think it's too easy for him to be Sauron. Though Sauron, when he took an elven form, I'm pretty sure his name was Anatar. We even referenced that in the second episode, which, kind of similar. I couldn't remember the A name and I looked it up. I'm pretty sure he took an elven form and called himself Anatar.
Yeah. So him being Sauron is still certainly a possibility. But I have a feeling that Sauron is off doing other stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It seems like when Sauron is gone or defeated or something, he has one of his lackeys build up the army for him. I mean, after he's destroyed by the last alliance of elves and men, he has the Witch King build up his army in the north or whatever. So it seems like that this is a trend of this guy's building up the army, Sauron's doing something else, doing some deceiving, maybe making some rings.
I will say this. I think that father, maybe one of the original elf to orc guys, the theory might be a little bit too clever for these writers. Maybe that's just the cynic in me.
I think
it would be cool though.
I think there's more than meets the eye, like Transformers.
Move on from that. That was bad.
Why does this guy think
a Michael Bay movie? Why would you even reference that?
Oh, okay. I'm not talking about the Michael Bay movie. I'm talking about like the original animated Transformers. Anyways, what was that, Josh?
Why does this guy think that he could become a god though? Like it seems like he's talking like he's the most important person on the evil side.
That's true. Yeah, the god comment sounds more like.
Well, maybe he's thinking if he serves Sauron well enough, Sauron will make him into a god or a Maya.
That's what I'm
or
thinking.
whatever.
Yeah, maybe because Sauron essentially is a god.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he's been promised things. Like if you're gonna turn an elf or whatever, I guess he might have been twisted or whatever it is. But clearly he's got pointy ears, and Arondir is wondering like where are you from or who are you or something. He's probably been promised things.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it sounds like he's been deceived by Sauron by like he's talking about lies and everything's rooted in lies. It seems like he's been deceived by someone.
Yes. Yes.
So Cole, I mean, do you think anything strange is happening with Arondir? I mean, just setting him free as we were talking about earlier, giving him his bow and a sword. Do you think that he could have been deceived or twisted in some way?
I do not. I think that that's a good thought, but I do not think he was. I think that Adar must have something else though going on. You're right, other than just setting him free to go tell his friends to send a message. You know what I mean? But I will say that I loved his action scene when they were running back and he mysteriously got his bow and sword. I didn't think about that till now, but that's fine. I thought that was great when he was protecting Theo. When he caught the arrow, I'm totally fine with that. Elves can catch arrows, totally fine. The slow-mo reminded me of the, the Uruk-hai hunt when like at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring when Boromir dies, like the slow-mo and the orcs running, plus the orcs looked fantastic. So I thought that was great. I love that part.
I personally think it's a better scene without the slow-mo. I'm fine with the catching of the arrow, but without the slow-mo.
I think, yeah. I mean, I'm imagining it without the slow mo. I liked it. I liked the slow mo. It brought back memories.
I don't know if y'all brought this up last time, but they do use slow mo a lot. I'm just thinking of the second episode when Galadriel's running with Elendil on their horses for 20 seconds of slow mo.
That was
big grin
was
of
the worst.
Galadriel. Oh my!
That was pretty unfortunate.
It was.
That was too much.
We didn't reference that in the last episode, but for what was so notable about that is that's the first time you see, which actually maybe this is important. That's the first time you see Galadriel smile, because you're like, that doesn't even look like Galadriel, because you literally have not seen her smile the entire show. But yeah, that was a very odd sequence. Of
it was very
professionals had to look at that scene and say, yeah, this is good.
It was weird.
They got a little carried away.
Cole, you can't even be pleased by that.
No, I thought it was weird. But I guess she just loves horses, man. She was excited getting on that horse and riding.
Some freaking
the horses were pretty majestic, but yeah, it was an odd scene.
I think they overuse slow-mo a little much.
I can't even think of another slow-mo portion other than those two.
She jumped off the sword with slow-mo. It didn't bend.
Okay.
Trust me, it was more slow-mo than you realize.
So
Josh, go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say, what if instead of delivering the message, his real intent was to let him lead him to where the tower was?
I think he knew where it was, because he literally said your friends in the old watchtower, so he knew
it would be a pretty prominent place.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense. What were you gonna say, Trent?
So Josh, this is a question for you. Probably should ask this to Ben, but I want to spread the love a little bit. What do you think is the importance of this hilt? I mean, they seem to be very set on it. That works, and specifically Adar. This seems like they want to get it for Adar. What is it about this hilt?
Well, you see that it's something that's been passed down through generations. At the end, where the guy who ran the little tavern, I don't know if his name is mentioned or not, but basically confronts Theo. Is it Theo? I always forget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Theo, and it's like, I know what you have, and gets all evil on him, and it's like, the time will come, save your strength. So, I don't really know like the origins of it, obviously, but it obviously has significance. So I'll pass it to Ben to tell the origin, if there is any.
No, I have no idea. I think it's an invention for the show.
I think it is. Though my theory is that it's Sauron's sword.
He uses a mace later.
He does use that giant mace. And I guess it's clearly meant for humans or blood-bearing creatures in some way, because it obviously binds with them in some strange way and uses that attachment to grow and become this powerful, like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings lightsaber is almost what it looked like. It like it slashed right through that orc, right? But yeah, I think it's going to be something important. It's clearly something important to Sauron, because that's what everybody's looking for. The presumption is that all this tunneling that all the orcs are doing is to look for this thing. So it's clearly extremely important, and I think we're gonna find out what it's for.
And what we see from the old man is, it seems like there's still a remnant within the Southlands that are loyal to Morgoth.
Yes.
I think we also see that.
Well, I'll be interested to find out if they were, because they used to be sided with Sauron, right? So I wonder if that sword was something that was given to them, or if it was just something they came upon and happened to, possess at the end of everything.
I think the old man referenced that what did he say? He said something along the lines of it was given to the men who were committed to Sauron. Basically, I can't exactly remember why or for what reason, but I think it was like a gift given to them for that reason.
Which is interesting. Why, if it was intended for men, why they want it back so much?
But I mean, it's powerful. It clearly holds some other significance that we do not yet understand.
Guess we'll find out.
Cole, this isn't really with the Southlands, but do you think that we've seen Sauron yet? Do you think one of the characters in the show is Sauron that we've met and actually seen?
I think it's very possible. Like I said, I would have loved for it to have been Halbrand, because I thought that would have been a really good twist. I don't
You're talking
think
about the man with Galadriel?
yeah, I don't think it will be. I mean, they're rallying the troops to go fight in the Southlands and all that sort of thing. I think the easy answer is just he's going to be some lost king who's going to rally troops. But I'd like to think that would be a really good wrinkle. You hear the reference. The old man mentions that the shooting star, of course, the stranger, is a reference to the fact that Sauron's returning. I think that's supposed to throw us off to still make us think that the stranger is Sauron. Don't think it's him. So I'm leaning towards no, we haven't seen him yet, but I kind of like the idea of it being Halbrand.
Yeah, I think it still could be the stranger. I mean, they might even be throwing a red herring that it's Gandalf. I mean, that could be the red herring. Like they're really making us think.
Yeah, it's possible.
I suspect we have not seen Sauron. I wonder if Halbrand could turn out to be one of the 9 who receive a ring.
Very interesting. That's true. 9 men receive a ring.
Does Elendil receive a ring or a Isildur?
No,
because the Isildur fights in the battle, and
that's true because they turn to wraiths. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
What if Halbrand's the Witch King?
That's what I wonder.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. So did the Witch King stab Frodo? Was it the? It was the Witch.
Yes.
Okay. Lots of full circle stuff. I like it. Well, good. Yeah, I really enjoyed this portion. I think Moria was still my favorite, but I really like that action scene with Arondir. So we will take a quick break, and then we will come back with final thoughts and any other predictions or whatever that we have for the future episode. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We are going to give a quick final thoughts. Why don't we start with Josh? Final thoughts on the episode. What are you looking forward to most, and what are you expecting from the next episode?
I'm most looking forward to Isildur going west and just all of the people going with him and seeing what is going to develop there. Yeah, I mean, I want to see the Harfoots again because we did not get to see them at all. So I had to wait a whole nother week to see if what's going to happen, if they're going to fall behind, if they're going to get left. Yeah, I'm excited.
Good point. Ben, same question.
I'm a sucker for big battles. I'm looking forward to the wars with Sauron in Middle-earth. And I'm looking forward to finally meeting Sauron.
All right.
Was there a second part of the question? I'm sorry.
No, that was pretty much it. Trent.
Right.
I mean, I think as everyone, I'm also looking forward to the Southlands, what battles happen there. I think probably this season Adar is going to be the main villain. I think they're going to hold off from maybe even revealing Sauron. He's probably just going to be a shadow in the distance for this whole season. I think Adar is probably going to be the main villain, and they'll probably reveal Sauron next season or later on.
I agree. That's possible. And I definitely think Adar is the main villain for this one. Also excited for big battles. We are on the same page there. Other than that, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how Arondir develops. I think that'll be exciting too. But yeah, that will be it for this episode of the Nerds After Dark podcast, reacting to the 4th episode of the Rings of Power Amazon TV series. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate anybody listening and coming on to hear what us 4 weirdos have to say. Check us out on YouTube, Nerds After Dark, if you want to see our not so beautiful faces. We also have more succinct clips of different things that we talk about if you want to hear how Elrond and Elros are related, or various things we discuss that are easier to identify. Also, check us out anywhere you listen to your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll also have a website kind of combining everything together soon, so that will be out there, and we will link it in the show notes once it arrives. But otherwise, thanks again for listening, and we will catch you next time. Thank you.